Today's picks both have something to do with music in front of and behind the camera. Horror and music, specifically hard rock and metal, have been paired together mainly because the fans are very similar. Both groups are dedicated, strong-willed, society-snubbing rebels, so pairing metal and horror is a no-brainer. This is M.L. Miller Frights Best in Horror Countdown 2021 through 2022. Counting down the best in horror films released from October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. According to me, M.L. Miller. Here we go. Number 30. Welcome to Hell, aka Bienvenidos al Infierno. On demand and digital download and streaming from Screambox from Cinedigm. It's directed by Jimena Monteoliva and written by Camilo Di Cabo. A young Argentinian girl named Lucia, played by Costanza Cardillo, gets involved with the lead singer of a death metal band named Christian, played by Damian Salomon. After she becomes pregnant with his child, Lucia realizes that the band has horrible intentions for her and her baby. When she flees their flop house and returns home to her abuela, played by Marta Lubos, the band eventually finds her and lays siege on the home. Now Lucia and her abuela must battle alone against devil-worshipping rockers out for a sacrifice. Welcome to Hell is a dank and filthy little movie. It takes place in impoverished places where there seems to be very little for anyone to look forward to or take inspiration from. The settings are decrepit and dismal, and the band and their actions are equally off-putting. I have to say, Welcome to Hell really made me hate these antagonists. They're the worst kind of people, abusing Lucia and anyone they encounter, all in order to achieve some kind of reward for their evil actions. This is an extremely dour film, one where even those who survive are cursed. It's definitely not the feel-good horror film of the year. Instead, it's one effective home invasion / devil-worshipping death metal horror flick. Shining bright in the middle of all of this muck is Costanza Cardillo, who plays Lucia. She is bright-eyed and hopeful, pressing forward, even when everything seems to be against her. There's a very subtle arc Lucia takes where she develops an understanding and love for her abuela, who is mute, yet leaves her inspirational messages tacked up all over their meager home. Seeing the two of them repair and reform their relationship after Lucia has obviously gone through a rebellious stage in her life, redeems the story and gives a vague sign of hope. Cardillo is stunning as the very pregnant Lucia, still fighting tooth and nail to save herself, her abuela, and her child. Though she doesn't have a single line, Marta Lubos is wonderful as the stoic abuela, even though her resemblance to Willem Dafoe distracted me quite a bit. And man, I hated this band. While I'm not a fan, nor do I hate death metal, the band is simply a bunch of bullying scumbags, and I couldn't wait to see them get their comeuppance at the hands of Lucia and her abuela. They're grimy, unhinged, and truly despicable villains. I felt a visceral hate towards them because of how cruel and callous they are, while tormenting a pregnant woman and her elderly grandmother. I guess that makes them great villains, but I honestly clapped and laughed with joy as they met their makers in the climax. While I feel the film itself sort of glamorized the rock star lifestyle of the band in some weird way, Welcome to Hell is definitely the film you want to show your teenage daughter as a cautionary tale to stay away from the bad dudes. Director Jimena Monteoliva contrasts the innocence of Lucia with the band's viciousness deftly, making the whole film unsettling to watch, like a predator playing with its prey before eventually eating it. The gore is excessive, but not over the top. There's lots of it, but things are played pretty real, making the deaths resonate all the more. While I feel the decisions made in the final act are a bit of a tonal shift, I was satisfied with how Welcome to Hell ended up. This is an especially gnarly movie, not one for the squeamish, but it is an effective story about an innocent fighting off the blackest of souls. I don't know if I was prepared for Welcome to Hell, but it sure left its mark on me after viewing. While it didn't quite make my main list, I was impressed with Spider-One's debut film. His brother, Rob Zombie, could learn a thing or two from his bro in regards to storytelling, as evidenced by Allegoria and the abysmal The Munsters, which I'm still trying to wash from my brain and eyes. Allegoria, it's new streaming on Shudder. It's directed and written by Spider1. Upon hearing about the premise of Allegoria, I was intrigued. Then I heard it was from Rob Zombie's younger brother, known as Spider1, so of course I became wary. But as soon as the opening credits rolled, opening with an acting teacher played to dramatic perfection by Mr. Show's John Ennis, preparing for a big speech to his class, I found myself walking the tightrope of loving and groaning at Allegoria. Allegoria is basically about the pursuit to be an artist and what one will sacrifice to bring those artistic and chaotic thoughts to life in painting, writing, acting, and music. The thing is, in director Spider1's opinion, art comes from a very, very dark place, and he shows it through a series of short skits that make up the movie. Now, on their own, I don't know if any of these segments would work at being entertaining, but for some reason, seeing the subtle way Spider1 interconnects the various acts of Allegoria endeared me to the film, with the careful way the film is put together in order to tell an interesting overall story. A character from one segment is referenced in another. One end of a phone call is played out, then later, we see the other end play out in another segment. The music used in one segment is referenced to in a later segment. Allegoria kind of works like an orchestra. The sound of only the cymbals and brass section don't really make a great overall song by themselves, but add some strings, a piano, some timpani, and some woodwinds, and now you've got something powerful. If anything, Spider1 proved himself to conduct these segments to sing wonderfully together. Now, Allegoria is filled with pretentious dialogue segments. It's funny how younger practitioners in any profession, not really having experience of their own to go on, often resort to spewing out academic principles and textbook jargon in order to seem smart. That's what the pretentious artists do in Allegoria, and that's what Spider1 does as a fledgling writer-director. The film is obviously inspired by Tarantino, but lacks the punch and thunder of a Tarantino script. So long rants about 6 chords that can summon evil or specific acting methods feel like someone reading straight off of Wikipedia rather than stimulating conversation. While these talky scenes are often punctuated by some powerfully horrific imagery, the diatribes cause my eyes to roll numerous times. One thing I have to note is that Spider1's script and direction seems much more focused than his older brother Rob Zombie's films have been lately. Even Zombie's most acclaimed films like Lords of Salem, The Devil's Rejects, and The House of a Thousand Corpses sort of devolve into a trippy, sloppy narrative mess by the last act. Spider1 also doesn't have Rob Zombie's fascination with dusting off old horror icons, relying on a relatively young yet talented group of people to star in his movie. While this is Spider1's first film, I'm much more interested in seeing what he has next up his sleeve than watching the next zombie disappointment. While not perfect, Allegoria consists of some wonderful performances by its cast. The aforementioned John Ennis shows power that I didn't know the actor had. Scout Taylor Compton offers up a charismatic performance, probably one of the best she's done in years. Willow Creek star and Expedition Bigfoot host Bryce Johnson is great as a pretentious painter. And the final segment with Kersey Fox and Josephine Chang introduced me to 2 new interesting actors I need to see more of. While Allegoria works as a whole, it does have some blunders in some of the segments. I wasn't thrilled with the segment where the writer's creation comes to life to demand a rewrite. And again, some of the speechifying should have been nipped. But just when I got too annoyed with the pretentiousness, Spider1 introduces Big Baby, a slasher who seeks out his past babysitters as an adult, yet wears a baby costume while chasing and murdering them. In the end, by the time the credits rolled, I felt I had been made privy to a vibrant new voice in horror with Spider1. Sure, it's not perfect, but Allegoria showed me the director has a whole lot of potential. As always, feel free to agree, disagree, or give me your own picks for your favorite horror movies. It's October, so let's talk horror. Come back tomorrow for the next level in the Best in Horror Countdown 2021 through 2022. Be sure to hit all of the pertinent bells and whistles down below, and you'll never miss a post. Happy Halloween, folks.